If I ask you, what do you need? I've actually made you think you're needy. You might not be.
Definitely.
And probably I can fulfill your needs, I'm hinting. This doesn't work. In fact, I think it's disrespectful. And he says, "What are you doing, old person? Planting a tree." And the old person says, "I'm planting a tree because my grandchildren will need shade."
In this very special episode, I have the privilege of exploring the challenges that families face when trying to transcend generations, with none other than Jay Hughes, one of the founded thinkers in the field of family enterprise. For over 5 decades, Jay has redefined how families around the world understand wealth, legacy, governance, and purpose. He's the author of seminal books like Family Wealth, Keep It in the Family, or The Cycle of the Gift, among others, and is widely credited and introducing the concept of the 5 forms of capital, a powerful framework of long-term family continuity. What will you discover in this conversation? Why luck is misunderstood and what synchronicity truly means in the concept of legacy. The biggest professional mistake that Jay ever made and the profound lesson it taught him about humility and respect. A radical redefinition of legacy and lineage, and why ethical wills often matter more than legal ones. The difference between harvesting and selling, and why enduring families never just sell out. What Jay learned from his own family's journey and stewardship, humility, and reinvention. A powerful 2-part exercise that every family can use to reconnect with their past and envision their future. This isn't just an interview, it's an invitation to rethink what success, continuity, and the love means in the world of family enterprise. Follow me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Comment any doubts you might have and the topics you would like to listen here in this podcast. And if anything of this conversation resonates with you, or you would like to explore how your family can endure from one generation to the next one, connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's begin.
We talked the other day about the pillars of the 5 different capitals, wealth in those terms. But there's always strikes me something about most of the families that is they have this little sense of luck. How would you define luck in that sense for these families that can make it from one generation to the next one?
Well, luck is a funny word. I've long believed, Alex, in evolution and not change. And that sounds like the same thing, but it isn't. Evolution is constantly testing the world to see where the empty spaces are. And when it finds an empty space or a dying space, or it moves in that space. So I believe in evolution as how things work, and I believe in synchronicity. I don't believe in serendipity. So some people would say serendipity is luck. Mhm. I believe in synchronicity. So basically, what I would say is that my experience is that there is something that looks like luck, but when one looks back to see where it came from, one discovers a pattern of evolution, getting ready for that event, and then one sees synchronicity in that event. So I suppose there's luck, but I don't think it happens very often, and a lot less than people think. So I know that's a very complicated answer, but that's what I believe.
That's why I wanted to ask you this question because it's been bothering me for a long time. Because I believe so that I have a lot of luck in life, but
Ah,
I don't know how to define it. And I'm sure you have also a lot of luck in your life,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
a
and
difficult
also
thing
some big,
to define.
yeah, and also some big steps into stuff that wasn't very pleasant too.
Of course. And talking about unpleasant things, what's been your biggest failure in life in this journey of helping families?
The first half of my life and professional life, I served families by asking them the classic modern business-oriented question, even in profession, I'm a lawyer, what do you need? If I ask you, what do you need? I've actually made you think you're needy. You might not be.
Definitely.
And probably I can fulfill your needs, I'm hinting. This doesn't work. In fact, I think it's disrespectful. So after a big midlife crisis, we discussed this a little the first time, I changed my whole consciousness to how can I help? But not how can I help with any suggestion I can help, but with an open heart and open mind. I would say that my biggest misstep was getting caught on this modern advertising practice idea of needs. And I can only say that the second half of my professional life, dealing with how can I help, has proven just how wrong it was to be asking, how can I, what do you need?
And in that sense, and I'm sure you've had the privilege of helping uh, a lot of families in different ages and different generations. And I say specifically the word privilege because for me it's a privilege to be doing this work. And there's always also a word that keeps on bothering my head. It's what exactly is legacy? In your words, how would you define legacy?
Well, so wonderful questions. Let me start by saying that legacy in the law, it's a word that comes from law, defines something you give someone in your will or when you die. You give a legacy. What I think we've done with that word, and we do this with words all the time. By the way, notorious one, as an example, once meant being noteworthy. Now it means something very different. Words keep maturing, they keep changing to fit new circumstances. What I teach families is to ask them, what is your lineage? Lineage. And in the word lineage, you can feel the line, and age, lineage. What I think we do when we make the best gifts and the best efforts is we extend that from which we came with the culture, the values, the virtues, the nature of us. We extend that to another person. So the problem with legacy to me is it's too short. It somehow feels short-sighted to me. It feels like I did something, this is. Now, that's what the word means in the law. That's exactly what it means. But I think the great gifts of this self come from this long line of what brought us in this life to be who we are. So I try to help my clients ask themselves, what is your lineage? Now, by the way, I'm not talking about wearing livery the way they do in England when you wear the colors of your lord. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your culture, your state of being, your spiritual self. Who are you, and how do you pass that on? So to give an example, so that it's not sounding too loose, it's become quite common here in America that very thoughtful people now write not one will or trust that passes their assets, they write an ethical will.
What do you mean by ethical will?
Yes, they write a will that states their virtues, their beliefs, their hopes for their children and grandchildren, their hopes for the future. It was common, actually, in the Jewish tradition for many centuries for men and women to write ethical wills. And this is now coming more and more into use. And so it's an opportunity for lineage. You feel that you can in a document incorporate all the things that you want to say, not simply in a legal document that has to meet certain court requirements. So ethical wills are a way to establish one's lineage in terms of what it is one really wants to pass on.
But maybe I would add something to what you're saying. And when you're talking about ethical will, maybe we could begin by saying, so what is the purpose of this?
Yes,
Put some purpose into
yes,
the document itself, and also adding into the legacy. What you're explaining is that legacy is something that you receive, you build in top of it, you put things of yourself and your family of your generation, and you then pass it on if you're lucky,
yes,
and they will build it up. That's why I love so much
yes,
these ad, and I'm sure you've seen it, of this luxurious brand of watches called Patek Philippe.
yes,
That they
yes, yes,
say
absolutely. The
it ain't
wonderful quote.
yours. It's only for you to take care of it
Yes,
for a while, because you're gonna have to give it up for the next generation.
I agree. It's an absolutely perfect example that we are only holders of things for a period of time as conservators and stewards. One more thing on this that I think might be interesting to our listeners. In English and in Spanish, we have a word aspiration, and this word is the same, more or less the same in Spanish. This word comes to us from the Latin ad, ad, spiratu, to spirit. The words are almost perfect Latin. Isn't it wonderful?
It is. It
Aspiration.
is.
What is aspiration? Aspiration is purpose. If we have an aspiration, it's a big thing to spirit. And maybe it inspiratu, inspires us. Also, these words are cognate. So ethical wills and lineages, as we pass them on, when they include our aspirations, they might inspire someone else. And then I would say one more thing, because this is a wonderful question on lineage and legacy. When we speak to our purpose, so let me be very specific. So if we had anyone who's listening who might be thinking of writing a trust or creating something of an entity which they're going to pass on, suppose they started the document. This is a gift of love. This exists to enhance the lives of its beneficiaries. There's an ethical will. There's lineage. Isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful, but the challenge there is how do you communicate it to the next generation so they can get the essence of it? And I would go back to our previous conversation, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago or a month ago,
Yes,
that the most important thing of a family, or I would say the asset that is more valuable of the family is the family itself, their members.
yes,
So that's why it's so important for them to focus themselves in stewarding their different capitals, the ones you were saying.
absolutely. The qualitative
Is
capital.
the quantitative in
Qualitative
those
capital,
senses.
yes.
But let me go back to what were you saying? Inspiration. If you're lucky in your life when you're a businessman, and one of your kids, your nephews, are inspired by your work and they want to work with you and keep on building that legacy. But what if they don't want to do? But when we passed away, because we're going to pass away, like it or not, maybe they would focus in trying to build those capitals in terms of you have to be an owner, a responsible owner in that sense. And that's where some families they get confused. No, I want them to work with me. No, but maybe that's not what they're here for in their life. But they're going to receive something, they like it or not. So have to be responsible owners. What do you think about that?
Okay. Well, the great families that I've studied practice an agricultural art with financial assets, harvesting. They make a decision over the different generations based on how well the enterprise itself is in their hands. They never sell, they harvest. It's a great thing for a family to harvest because it isn't only that the interests of the rising generation may be different,
Mhm.
the situation for that enterprise may be different. It may be better in the hands of someone else because of its own evolution. So great families, I've watched this for 57 years. They practice harvesting. They never sell. I'm going to say it again. Look at the difference of the words.
Mhm.
So when that enterprise has reached its maturity in their hands as great stewards, they harvest it. And very often that harvest then leads to liberation of these for new ideas, which of course is the original way that that enterprise came to life, energy to matter. So every once in a while, if you harvest, you are recreating an energy body, and now you start putting it back into matter. You do what the first generation did, and now you're the first generation. Isn't it wonderful?
And that's,
Harvesting.
yeah, harvesting. Definitely. I would agree totally with you. And that's when I've seen that family businesses evolve to a family enterprise
Yes.
because they're harvesting and they're creating new things for the next generations. Because what
Yes.
was a good business maybe a century ago, maybe today is not relevant or as relevant as it was. And now there are new things in those terms.
Alex, my great grandfather, August Bjorman, who was a German immigrant in the 1860s from a small town in Germany to America, when he came back from the Civil War, which he survived, he was a metallurgist and he bought a factory in Newark, New Jersey. And what do you think he made? He made all the hardware for horses. He made special alloys for special spurs.
Mhm.
And he also made everything metal for the horse. I think that was a business which he wisely got out of. Why? Because of automobiles.
In the beginning of
he,
last century.
he harvested, believe me, he harvested it just on time. So this is a perfect example of what you're saying.
Yeah. Did you ever had the dream that any of your kids would keep on with the work you've been doing so meaningful for families? Or what did their dreams took them?
Well, gosh, what a wonderful question. I'm not going to take all of our time because I have 10 children. I have six, well, five now because it was one divorce, six of mine, and Jackie has four, so we make 10. And I look at all of my children as mine, even though we're a second marriage. I've been blessed with that. So this is an interesting pattern. I'm the sixth generation lawyer in my family. My younger daughter's husband is a judge.
Okay.
And my new granddaughter, who's a gay lady, married one of my granddaughters. She's a lawyer. So we have
Wow.
6, 7, and 8 generation.
Wow.
And in my wife's family, her son is founded a firm to serve the qualitative needs of families. So we are doing exactly what you just said, but not in any form that anybody would understand. But we're
How do you
right in the
feel?
middle.
How do you feel that that's happening in these, which is going to be the 7th and 8th generation?
Yes. Well, when my son-in-law sits down in the court, he's a judge in the Social Security Administration. In America, we have administrative courts in all the areas where the federal government has money because there might be fraud, there might be not entitled to benefits. He sits down 3 days a week in the court in his black robes and dispenses justice. I couldn't do that one day.
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to decide who was entitled and who wasn't. And he is the most gentle man, and every other day he has to decide that some families that could benefit hugely from these benefits are not entitled to them, and that others are. I have such respect for him. And then my stepson, Ned, who's built this firm to serve the qualitative needs of families, when I listen to him, I just smile. Just think, isn't this amazing? Gosh, that's just wonderful. So, just like any other person, if we're lucky enough to have children or grandchildren who are curious about us, and we can give them hints, we can give them a little aspiration. If they have a little aspiration, maybe we can give a little inspiration, and then you get a family doing similar things.
So, in order to round up this conversation, James, what would you share with the audience that will inspire them to think forward for next generation things? You can beat the statistics in those terms. What would be these 3 or 4 things that you can share with them for them to think about it and look for help?
Well, I'm going to give you 2 very, very important things to learn about each other, and then a practice. So if we're going to be hoping that there'll be a 5th generation of our family, so 2 more than the 3rd generation and out, what do we want to know about each other when we go on this journey? Well, one of the things we really want to know about each other is how we learn, because we're going to process so much intellectual capital together. So we've got to know how we learn so we can process, so we can make better joint decisions, and so our purpose is achieved. So learning how we learn is enormously important. And by the way, useful for everything else in your life. The second, the Enneagram, which is a personality profiling system, is inerringly right. 9-pointed star, 9 kinds of people. If we know who we are in that star, and it's horizontal, by the way, there's no verticality. Gosh, when I sit down and I know who you are and I know your personality, I know how to make decisions with you. Oh, very simple. 2 huge things. Now, practice. Imagine for a moment that you're having a family dinner with all the family members from 6 years old to 80 or 90. You're all together. And you have a round table, or let's say oval table. And the elder of the family looks to the 6-year-old and says, "We're going to go around the table tonight, and there's only one question. Who was the oldest person you knew, and what did they tell you about someone older? Please begin." About 2 hours later, that family knows not only itself intimately, it knows things about the married-in families it would otherwise never learn, and it does something that it then understands forever. Because when you do that exercise and you have an 80 or a 90-year-old, and most families do, the person that they will tell the family about is very often their grandparent, born around 1880, who told them something about someone older. By the way, I knew my great-grandmother was born before the American Civil War, 1857, and here we're in 2025. So all of a sudden, the family goes back 150 years. Wow, they say. Wow, we're not the first or second generation. No. And then they look at the 6-year-old and say, he's going to be 100. 250 years. And someone says, Mr. Hughes, you said it would take us 100 years to see how the third generation is doing. That's not a problem for us, is it? I said, no, not at all. As long as you understand that time is your friend. And when time is your friend, remember what Cicero, the great Roman statesman, said one day. He was walking down a road, Alex, outside of Rome, and there was an old man planting a tree. Little tiny tree. Old man. And Cicero goes over to the old man, think of our patriarch or our matriarch, planting the tree. And he says, what are you doing, old person, planting a tree? And the old person says, I'm planting a tree because my grandchildren will need shade. Time is our friend if we use it wisely. Plant today. There's no time to waste.
Thank you very much for this time and for this sharing your knowledge and your thoughts, dear James. And time is our friend. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Alex. Take care.
J. Hughes reminds us that families who thrive across generations aren't necessarily the wealthiest. They're just the ones with the deepest sense of meaning. Legacy is not what you leave behind. It's what you build in the lives of others. Governance starts with the understandings how we learn. Families that embrace diverse learning styles make better collective decisions. Harvesting isn't selling. Great families transform their enterprises by channeling their energy into purpose, not exits. Time is a gift, as Jay puts it. We plant trees whose shade we may never sit under, but someone we love will. True wealth is well-being, and sustaining well-being means nurturing all 5 capitals: human, intellectual, social, spiritual, and financial. Every family has the free will to decide where entropy will take over. If this episode sparked reflection about your own family path, I'd be honored to support that exploration. The easiest way to get in touch is through LinkedIn. Let's connect and explore what's possible for your legacy. Thank you for listening to Business in Families. See you in the next episode.